sun is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. We are at Talladega Superspeedway this week for the Hellmann's 500.
Talladega Superspeedway is located in Lincoln, Alabama. Track is the longest track that we have here on the Sprint Cup circuit at 2.66 miles in length. 188 laps to get this 500 miles done this weekend. This track has lots of drafting, obviously, with being restrictor plate. A lot of grouping of cars together. Sometimes it could be as many as 3 wide. This is a trialable track. These guys will be carrying speeds on average of over 195 miles an hour in the turns included in that. They're going to be on the gas the whole time during this one. But the big one is always a possibility here at Talladega in these super speedways. Just cross your fingers that it's not going to be your guy that's one of those guys that takes goes down in a wreck. But interesting fact here, Ford has won 5 out of the last 8 races here at Talladega, including the last 2 races that we've had. So a lot of Ford loving going on here at the Talladega Superspeedway. So maybe that trend will continue.
It might, as maybe like with a Miller Lite hat. Anyways, the weather is supposed to be 78 degrees and sunny as we go racing Sunday, October 23rd at 2 p.m. Eastern on the networks of NBC Sports. Well, as you can see, we're down to Adrian this week as he is at the race with a hot pass at Talladega. But with that said, let's get to the burning rubber picks. Liehr.
Burning rubber, Talladega restrictor plate style, baby!
All right, buddy. That was very enthusiastic for the Talladega restrictor plate nightmare that is known as fantasy racing. So go ahead and give us your first burning rubber pick, buddy.
Wow, man. Where do we begin? This week is just one of those weeks where, this is basically going to your local convenience store and picking out a bunch of numbers, and hopefully the right ticket comes out at the end of the race. But fantasy-wise, man, it is going to be a crazy week. Anything goes in this race. Restrictor plate racing is it's so hard to predict. Basically the strategy you're going to be taking this week is, choosing those guys that have the great place differential, because there's just going to be so much jockeying and going back and forth and who leads so many laps. It's going to be spread out so far that there's not going to be one particular guy or car or gal, I should say, sorry, Danica, but could, lead laps in this race, because, it's not like all the other races where we got one dominator and that person's going to lead majority of the race. This is going to be multiple cars that are leading laps. So you definitely want to focus on the people that are going to have good place differential, the cars that start towards the back. But my first burning rubber pick, buddy, is going with the number 11, Denny Hamlin. He's not been off to a great 2016 chase start so far, with issues, obviously, last week in Kansas that they had with the splitter, week before, blowing the motor. So a lot of problems for that team since the chase started. But they're 43 points behind in the chase total, and only 8 points behind Joey Logano, who currently sits 8th in chase standings. So they need a win very, very badly here at Talladega this weekend, and they'll have to do it basically to get it done to move on to that next step to the race of the 8th, the chase of the 8th. So, but Hamlin is a race winner here at Talladega, and definitely too in the next gen cars in the spring of 2014. First practice here he was 14th. But he has always had he's always been a strong, restrictor plate racer. But the other great part about the number 11 FedEx car this week is he's only $9,200. So that's going to definitely help you well round your lineup this weekend with that cost savings compared to the guys all the way at the top. But they will get some help from their JGR brethren this weekend too to help solidify that top 8 spot. So, those other guys don't have wins either, with Harvick and Johnson being the 2 winners of this stage. But that they're going to try to help keep Denny Hamlin at least in that top 8 to get him out of those last 4 spots. So look for them to help him out quite a bit. But what do you think about old Denny Hamlin this weekend, buddy?
All right, man. I like Hamlin. I like his price tag. I also like Truex because they're both in positions where they have to run well to keep the other. Hamlin needs to advance into it, and Truex has to run well to stay above the cut line. So I like them both for that reason. However, Carl Edwards' cars started picking up a vibration in practice 1, and they replaced the rear gear. He went back out in practice 2, was still feeling the vibration anytime they got past 7,400 RPM. Every other JGR car on the track, including Truex, is freaking out a little bit as all of the team are in brand new cars this week, right? Like they've never ran any of these cars before, and one of them is having a serious mechanical issue on the track. If they can get it figured out as to what it is, and if nobody else has any problems over the rest of practice 2 and over qualifying, you're probably good, but I would keep an eye on this situation, as it really has me worried when any team brings all new cars to the track and one of those cars is having serious mechanical issues that they're trying to diagnose and they still haven't got completely diagnosed yet. So my current recommendation right now is to just keep an eye on JGR. I love where your heart's at on the Hellmann play, and I kind of want to be there too with him and Truex, but until I see more or get some more clarity on how these cars are functioning mechanically, I'm going to jump and go somewhere else for this race. And for me being the JGR homer, that's a little bit crazy. So I'll give you a chance to respond to that.
No, I mean, I think everybody's going to have quite a bit different strategy this week too. So, like we talked about, it's going to be one of those races where it's a crapshoot.
So one of the drivers I'm swerving to this week instead of the JGR guys, as you can probably tell, is Brad Keselowski at 10,300. In his last 5 races here, he has 2 wins and 3 top 5s, including a win in the spring. But he also has a history of being a beast here in October, with a win in 2014 and an 11th to 4th place finish last fall. This week he'll be going after Dale Sr.'s record in restrictor plate racing, who is the only driver with 3 straight restrictor plate wins. Kez is 7 points back of the cut line, which means he needs to beat his teammates Joey Logano by 7 spots, or Truex by 20 spots, or win, which is actually probably the easiest of these scenarios, to advance to the round of 8. I look for Keselowski to be fighting for a win here. Now, that could get him in trouble, but it also could be the monster play that you have to have this week. That's one of the reasons why I'm on Keselowski. The other reason is with limited practice data, as we're filming this, literally as practice 2 is going on in the background, as I'm watching that while I'm talking to you guys, is because of restrictor plate racing, there are only 3 cars in the last 5 races here that have multiple top 5s. One of them is Dale Jr., who's not even racing this weekend, right? One of them is Clint Boyer, who's still in terrible equipment, and even the restrictor plate in practices so far doesn't look to be saving his performance at this track. And the other is Brad Keselowski. I think Keselowski is the safest play that you can make this weekend, and I'm for sure going to have exposure to him. Liehr, your thoughts?
Oh, I'm right there with you, brother. He's definitely one of the guys that proven throughout his whole history here at Talladega, with 15 starts, having 4 total wins. He loves racing here at Talladega. And one of those things that I think that's going to help him out quite a bit is they've got a lot riding on this weekend. They have to perform if they want to move on to the next stage. After coming off of that wreck last week at Kansas, they're going to be hungry for that win, and they're going to do anything that they can to solidify themselves into that next spot, into the next round of the chase. So, that Keselowski is, 1, a good plate racer, but 2, is hungry to get a win, but 3 is on the cusp of not making it to the next stage. So I definitely am going to have exposure this weekend to Keselowski. And I think a lot of other drivers, not other drivers, but other fantasy players will have exposure to him as well, because they're going to see all those factors as well. But he is the second most highest cost driver at 10,300. So, you are going to pay for what you get with Keselowski. But, if he comes and wins and scores a bunch of points, he's going to be a must-own play. So you definitely got to have exposure on him this weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. I just love it. And, dude, his 10-3 price tag doesn't do a whole lot to limit you. They adjust the pricing this week. So, with that said, Liehr, who's your second pick to burn some rubber this week, buddy?
I'm going a little bit out of my normal zone here, but I'm going to be going with another chaser. He's not really in harm's way of not making the next stage, but I want to go with the number 41 of Kurt Busch. They had a really strong week last week, even though they had to go up to a backup car after crashing their initial car at Kansas in practice. and he ended up having to start obviously at the back of the field, and he had a strong finish of 13th. So coming through the back of the field and finishing 13th was really good for them. But they currently sit 5th in the chase standings. They're minus 20 points to Jimmy Johnson. And in this first practice here at Talladega, he was 29th fastest. But that time's going to improve here with this second practice that we've got going on. But he's got some really great history here as well. He's got 31 races under his belt, which is quite a bit here at a restrictor plate racing track. And he's never won here, so that's also another incentive for him as well. But he's got 16 top 10s, which is over 50% of his total races here. And his cost for a guy who currently ranks 5th overall in the total standings is only $8,700, which I think is pretty insane. So he's got some real recent good place differential here as well at Talladega. You can look at his last 3 races. He's all had positive place differential in every single one of them. But I take a different, as far as that goes, I am enticing as far as taking Busch as your pick this week, because I just don't think a lot of people are going to be on the Kurt Busch play. And he's got an average start here of 20th and average finish of 16th. So he's definitely going to get some good place differential. The thing with him is where's he going to start at 1? That's going to be a huge factor, whether you play him or not. But 2, he's definitely going to get you place differential if he doesn't get caught up into, the carnage of Talladega. So, and obviously with his price tag, it's going to also be able to, make you have a lineup that's going to be considerable to more of the middle tier guys instead of the top tier, and then doing a lot of pump plays this week. So I definitely think that Kurt Busch has got a real good chance of having a great showing this weekend.
Yeah. Okay. So I get the Kurt Busch play. I'm just not a huge fan of the Stewart-Haas team this week, and the reason why is that none of them have anything to really race for, right? As long as Kurt or and Harvick don't get caught up in crap, like they're golden, right? Harvick's already through. It just there's no incentive, and like Tony Stewart is just not appealing to me, and neither is Danica unless she starts way in the back. And I just don't see a lot of speed. I haven't seen a lot of speed. I think they're going to play it safe. I just think that there are better options here. Now, if your goal is to just play it safe and try to get somebody that'll steer clear of the wreck, like, fair enough. I don't know that that's going to get it done in GPPs. As far as cash games, I love the Kurt Busch play, especially if he qualifies back. But none of those things we're going to know until we have qualifying lay down. So I've kind of had to maneuver a little bit differently with where I'm with how I went about plays. And one of those is my next burning rubber play, and that's Chase Elliott. As the Rain Man would tell you, the 24 car is 24 spots away from the cut line. That's some sort of omen. That means Chase Elliott's going to get his first win and take it down and just do all that. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper than that and give you a little bit more analysis than just my instincts, which I attribute partly to the Rain Man himself, Jamie Liehr. He will have the benefit of a blocker and a leader under Hendrick's strategy for this week. He's got a draft buddy and somebody pushing him from behind. The Hendrick strategy is to have Chase stay on Jimmy Johnson's bumper and ride around the track with one of the other Hendricks cars right behind him, if not both of them, giving him a buffer zone. That way he can go to the lead whenever he wants, and whenever he's not the fastest car out there and needs to tuck behind and save some fuel or save tires, he can tuck behind Jimmy Johnson. I have these Hendrick cars running in a group together, so if you're going to play Chase, you want to play Jimmy with him, because I see them finishing right behind each other. Secondly, I love when a driver in NASCAR is in a position where they have to perform. I love this narrative in all of sports. When somebody's back's against the wall, oftentimes they beast up and give you one of those amazing once-in-a-lifetime performances that we remember with awe and reverence later. And I think that might be the case this week, as Hendrick is pulling out all the stops to make it happen. Literally every Hendricks car on the track is just trying to pave the way for Chase Elliott to get a win this week and get into the round of 8. I think when that happens, you're going to bring out the best in Chase and the best in Team Hendrick, and they're going to get it done. And lastly, because there's not a whole lot of statistics for Chase Elliott at Talladega in a Sprint Cup car, in his sole race here, he has a top 5 finish and led 27 laps. I love Chase Elliott, and his salary is sexy too this week. He's cheap. Liehr, your thoughts?
No, man, I definitely agree with you. It's going to be one of those things where Jimmy Johnson's already in it. Chase Elliott's on the cusp of not being in the next stage, but then you've got Alex Bowman, who has got nothing to drive for, so that he's going to be out there helping him out. But it's all going to obviously hinder on where Chase Elliott qualifies at. But the crazy part is this year is Chase Elliott's rookie year, and Daytona and Talladega, he sat on the pole for both of those super speedway races, which I find very interesting. But the best part too is, he started first on the pole in the previous Talladega race this year, but also too, I mean, he didn't fall way back into the field. He finished fifth and he led 27 laps. So, those 4 points of the place differential didn't really kill you. Plus, he got the points for what he needed for the spot, and then also those laps led. So it's definitely one of those things where it really is just going to hinder on where Chase Elliott starts, and his price point is definitely sexy at 8,800. But I think that that team is going to be hungry to get a win for him this weekend to lock him into the next round because it's not too many rookies that get this far in their rookie season, and he's definitely a special driver. And I think obviously the Hendrick team realizes that, and the more that they move on in the chase, the better for them as an organization. So they're going to do everything possible to get him to get that win this weekend.
So with that said, it's time to move along to the value plays. And there's nothing better than the value of free. And we had a winner of the free Martin Truex Jr. Promo card. Liehr, you want to tell us who won the card this week?
Yeah. So basically what I did was I wrote down everybody's name on there that was a qualifier for it. And then also put them just in the same order that it was when they commented on the show last week. And the lucky number was number 2, which is This Is C Money. So This Is C Money. Congratulations, sir, on your Martin Truex Jr. card. Just message me directly on Twitter, which my Twitter name is on the intro, or you can send me a Facebook message. Obviously, you know my name, so you can find me there, and just send me your information, and I will send that card out to you, sir. But this week, I am going to be going with my value play. We're going to bring out another contest this week because this is such a crapshoot. But we are going to also try to give away again the SpongeBob SquarePants signed Greg Biffle number 16 diecast card. But Biffle's going to be my my value play this week. As far as Biffle, Biff, where do I begin? Biffle was the fastest in the first practice today, but I mean, I don't know if you could put much stock into that because it's one of those things where it was, something that is definitely probably not going to be reflective of how they actually do perform on Sunday. But the best part about the Biff this week is he drives a Ford. He also drives a Roush Fenway Ford, which they were 3 of the top 5 in the first practice. But apparently it takes a restrictor plate to be put into these Ford engines for them to be fast. I mean, do you understand that, Poppa? I guess I don't either. Sure. But as far as Biffle goes, he's raced here 27 times. He's got 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s. So Biffle will probably qualify outside the top 15, which that will be excellent. And his cost this week is very, very doable. It's $7,100. So he will definitely make you a good play this weekend. And I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that flying run, and then he can, obviously break through the carnage and, get a top 10 and produce a lot of place differential points for you this weekend.
So let me get this straight. If he goes top 10, and if somebody comments and likes on the show, they can win that autographed Biffle car, right?
Yeah, so as far as the rules, it's always the same as we always have them for our giveaways, but you have to like and comment on the show for your chance or opportunity to be picked as the winner of the SpongeBob SquarePants 400 signed autographed number 16 Greg Biffle diecast.
Right on. All right, man. Dude, I like the Biffle play, and the reason why, his price is just right, and now granted it was practice 1, but he did lead also the 10-lap average board from practice 1, and those Fords were incredibly fast. And somebody else that was fast in practice one and looks pretty fast is Michael McDowell. And DraftKings jacked his price way up at $6,400. So the first argument I'm going to have here is that I expect his ownership to take a huge hit, especially at a crapshoot of a track like in a restrictor plate race as Talladega. So low ownership is your friend at a crapshoot track. As long as he doesn't overqualify, he has the ability with the speed that he was showing, as well as those Roush Fenway cars. That's why I like that you were there. All those guys were showing speed, even comparable to practice too, that shows that they can easily stay on the front on the lead lap. If that's the case in a restrictor plate race, then any one of those cars from history has a chance to win this race. That's how we have some of the guys that have wins nowhere else have those wins on restrictor plate races. It's because,
David Reagan.
Yeah, as long as you can stay on the lead lap, you're in play. And I think this McDowell car will do it. The only thing that I'm worried about is, as we've had before with him and DiBenedetto, sometimes they like to overqualify and man up and just way overqualify, and it makes them not worth their value, and you can't play them. So as long as McDowell has a poor qualifying effort, feel free to lock him in at 6,400. I like the car. It looks really fast. He's also one of those drivers that drives well in a group of cars. Your thoughts, Liehr?
Yeah, I mean, as far as McDowell, the guy's been stellar the last couple weeks as far as a fantasy play and one of your pump plays, because he's had 38 points at the Bank of America 500 at $5,400, and then last week at Kansas at the Hollywood Casino 400, he had 34 points. Both of them where he had great place differential, and so you're talking about a guy that cost $5,100 last week, has now jumped up $1,300 in salary. A lot of people are going to jump off that train because they don't want to pay that type of money for Michael McDowell. But the guy actually has quite a bit of experience here. He's got 11 races here at Talladega. Now, granted, he's got 4 DNFs here, but that can always happen here at Talladega. I mean, anybody can get caught up in that. But yeah, I mean, as far as Michael McDowell goes, his last race here in the spring, he started 31st and finished 21st. So, I mean, that's 10 place differential points for you right there, and plus the position. I just don't know if he's going to actually pay off what you want for his price point at $6,400. Me personally, I think there are better options out there for less cost, but you never know what's going to happen. Michael McDowell might get a top 10, and he's going to be that guy you have to take it down. So I'm definitely going to at least have maybe one of them or 2 of them, because you got to have some exposure on them.
I think I'm going to roll back to the top 10 possibilities. I'm honestly just hoping for a top 20. And hopefully he qualifies 30s like he did last week.
Yes, I mean, that's the key for this guy. He has to qualify in the back, or he's definitely not a play.
Let's be honest, dude. It's the key for all these value plays. Like, as good as Biffle looked, you don't want him over qualifying in this race. Like, even as good as he looked, like that's not what those cars have done all year, right? Like, if Biffle qualifies top 5, I'm not going to play him even at his salary, because I just don't think that he has the ability to sustain that. But with that said, Liehr, who's your second value guy? A guy that needs to go from the back to the front.
Well, this guy's actually, him and his Front Row Motorsports team have done a very, very good job of doing that as of late. But going to go with Chris Buescher. And he's been a guy that obviously he made the chase this year, but they got kicked out after the first stage because they didn't perform as good enough to move on to the next stage. But this guy is a young driver. This is his first chase, and they've been learning week to week as far as that goes, and he's been doing well. As far as fantasy wise, the last 2 weeks he's had 38 points and 34 points. Last week he started 30th, finished 21st. The week before he started 26th and finished 16th. So consistently being in that top 20 as far as a top 20 car. And if he has an overqualification, an underqualification. So if he starts, 25, 27 or later, like, this is a guy you want to have on your lineup, because he's definitely a guy that can produce the results for you. But like I said, this week will be much of the same as last week. He was even in the top 5 in the first practice, but his cost is the same as last week at $6,000, which Me personally, I would much rather have Chris Buescher than the last guy we just talked about, Michael McDowell, and I get a $400 savings there that I can put somewhere else. But it's like I said, it's basically a lottery ticket, just like the rest of them. But his chances are a slight higher to wreck, just because of the amount of experience that he's had as far as these super speedways go. He hasn't had quite the experience as some of these other drivers have. But granted, I do like Chris Buescher better than Michael McDowell, but he's not going to be in every single one of my lineups, just because of the fact that this is very specific as far as the type of driving style and skills that you have to have for this race, just based off of the drafting and them being so caught up in groups. One little slip here and that could take out 10, 15 cars, and you just pray and hope that the cars that are remaining are your guy that didn't get caught up in that carnage. So, but what do you think about Chris Buescher this week, man?
Oh, dude, I love the Buescher play, but you're making an argument that Buescher is a better play because you're saving $400 on McDowell, and since they haven't qualified, I don't think we can make that play. And the argument that most people are going to play Buescher, I think, if anything, gives credence to why you'd want to play McDowell if we assume that they're starting right around each other. I think that $400 difference is going to separate you by at least 10% ownership, and that alone makes up the $400, in my opinion. But especially if they're qualifying if they're around the same price. I like these.
Fair enough. I mean, and he's got 2 races here compared to Michael McDowell's 11 races. But it's been a tale of 2 stories with the 2 races. The one race he started 38th and finished 24th, and the other race he started 27th and got in a crash and finished 37th. So it's luck of the draw.
Right. Well, no, that's because that's what Talladega is, dude. It's half the time you're going to run good here, half the time you're going to get caught up in crap, and that's just what restrictor plate racing is, and NASCAR seems to be okay with that. So another driver that I hope that has been nothing but fantasy goodness in the last few weeks, and who's my second value pick, is Brian Scott at 5,100. He's still way too cheap. And what I want to be clear, and the reason why Liehr and I are battling back and forth a little bit on some of these better guys in the value range, is there are clear traps in the value range. And what I want to specify by the trap in the value range, there are cars that don't have a chance to stay on the lead lap, that would need extreme help and a lot of things to go wrong for them to even be contending with some of these place differential plays. Those are drivers that I don't think you want when you can have guys that can be on the lead lap like Scott. In his last 3 races, for fantasy purposes, he has scored us 36, 30, and 22. All 3 of these play off his price tag. And what that $5,100 price allows you to do is make more creative plays, get the extra $400 to get the place differential, and then buy another superstar up top. He's basically putting up the same amount of points as a lot of the guys that are right above him that cost $2,000 more than him. And it's silly to me that people will pay $2,000 more for the exact same end result. And I just don't understand why people aren't seeing it. I would just be careful even on the restrictor plate races, that some of those cars are just not cars that are capable of running with the big boys. Scott is in equipment that can run with the big boys. That's why I like him at that $5,100 price tag. Liehr, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's not much else I can add to your wisdom there, but when you're talking about that same price range that you're talking about, I mean, that's the lowest of the low tiers. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's within the bottom 5 of the salary caps there. So, I'm not going to play Earnhardt. I'm not going to play Sorensen. Those guys don't have the equipment. Then you start talking about Annette, who could hang in there, but it's still a big question mark. And then you got DiBenedetto, who is practicing horribly already today. And then the next one is Brian Scott. So, I mean, you've got other people that don't even race full time in the circuit, and Bobby Labonte and David Gilliland, who are way more expensive than Brian Scott, and he's in a full ride equipment. So that kind of doesn't really correlate with that. Right. But yeah, I mean, Brian Scott is definitely one of your best pump plays this weekend, because you're right, he does have the equipment to stay up with those other guys, and he does have 3 races here, so it's not like he's going in, blindsided by not racing. And he's been in a car week in, week out, so he's very comfortable in that car. So I definitely think that Brian Scott is going to be a great, punt play this week.
And like we've said throughout all the plays, guys, all of these plays are dependent upon as long as they can miss the big one. And we're not and can see into a crystal ball and know exactly who's going to come out wrecked. If you've seen my fantasy results, you know that's anything but the case, as it likes to happen to me with 5 laps or so to go. All right, guys, welcome to the segment of the show where we put a lineup together in the 12K lug nut this week on DraftKings. You can compete against this lineup. We encourage you never to duplicate this lineup, but to try to deviate from it. And the purpose of us doing this is to show you the thought process and the construction as we go through and put together a NASCAR lineup. So, Liehr, where do we want to start this week, buddy?
Well, first, before we get started, man, I want to say it's crazy because if you do your lineup right this week, you can nab 4 studs and go with a couple nice pump plays. So, but I think we're definitely both on the same page when it comes to one driver in specific, and that would be the number 2 Miller Lite.
All right, let's go ahead and plug and play Keselowski on this lineup. Now, guys, because you see instinctually Liehr and I both going there, if you're wanting a contrarian lineup this week, automatically the place you should start is off Keselowski. I think he's going to be the number 1 owned driver this week. Wouldn't you agree, Liehr?
Yeah, man. I mean, just based off of everything that we've got going on, I would say without a doubt that he is going to be the top owned guy.
I honestly want to just follow what we said in the show and play Elliott and Jimmy right behind each other. I know that's me taking up a lot of salary and playing 2 people, but do you have a problem with that or no?
No, I think it's a good play, man. Jimmy Johnson, I think, is going to be strong. The pressure is off that team again. He had a great performance last week. I'm very pissed off at myself that I avoided him like the plague altogether because that severely hurt me last week.
I tried to tell you, dude. I tried to tell you.
But yeah, no, I think those 2 is definitely a good play, and I think not a lot of people will be on. They may be on one, but I don't think they're going to be on both of those guys in the same lineup.
2 or much less all 3 of these guys in the same lineup. All right, Liehr, we've got $7,000 per driver remaining. Where do you think we should go now?
Well, my choice would be, because I'm just one of those instinctive fantasy NASCAR players that I like to get a couple big boys in there and then go dig deep down and get the guys that I really like down below, just so I kind of know exactly what my salary is that I like to play with towards the end of the lineup that I have. So my vote would definitely be for the Brian Scott play.
Oh, absolutely. I was actually going to offer to just make that play to free you up more money and let you make the last 2 picks, since I kind of double dipped there. All right, so that leaves us $79.50 per driver remaining. So basically, if you want to reach down one more time, like Liehr just suggested earlier, you can and buy anyone on the board, or you can spend 2 mid-range guys.
I would go maybe a middle-tier guy, possibly. I think the Austin Dillon play is a little interesting this week because he is also on the cusp of not making the round to the chase of the next stage of the chase of the 8. You could go that route. You could stud it up a little bit and take a bigger guy, like Denny Hamlin. Also, I'm not really sure if I really like the Kevin Harvick play this week, just because they're coming off the win. They can relax, do what they want to do. But I think that they're going to be probably starting in the top 5, but I don't know if I necessarily see them finishing up there. And for that price point, there's other options out there. Kyle Busch and Martin Truex, those are 2 interesting guys. Obviously Kyle Busch, he's standing okay in the standings as far as the chase is concerned. But he's sitting 3rd, but Truex is right there kind of on the cusp a little bit, being in the 6th spot. But I'm not really a fan of Truex when it comes to restrictor plate racing. I just think there's better options out there when it comes to that. But if I had my choice, I probably would either roll with Denny Hamlin here or even doubling up on Team Penske and going Joey Logano.
Let's double up with Team Penske and go with Joey Logano on this lineup. And that leaves 60, or that would leave 64, which allows us to make the McDowell play if he qualifies where we want him to, or the Buescher play if he qualifies where we want him to.
Right.
Like, we basically have that option. I'll let you choose who you want.
Well, here's the crazy part is I think that if we're specifically talking about this lineup, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I like Buescher more than I like McDowell. But when we're talking about this type of lineup, we could actually go with the lower owned type of driver, because definitely I think McDowell will be lower owned than Chris Buescher. Plus, I don't think you have a lot of people spending their whole entire salary down to zero when you could put this lineup together.
No, like, there's probably zero chance that there's people playing Michael McDowell and Brian Scott. Like, that's
right. Exactly. So my choice in this situation to make it different than all the other lineups out there would definitely be the McDowell play.
Right on, dude. So that gives us a lineup of Keselowski, Elliott, Johnson, Scott, Logano, McDowell. And it pains me a little as there's no JGR on that lineup, but, like we said, like this is a race vision where you have the JGR teams not really worried about it other than Hamlin. And
right.
And since they have that mechanical issue, this is kind of a nice lineup where we're not dealing with that mechanical issue at all. We fade that completely. Now it's just fading the wreck. So I like that lineup a lot.
It's always good to take variables out of your situation that could cost you in the end. And that is definitely a smart move. If you've already got a team like Edwards and the 19 team that are going in with issues already going on in the car, that is a reflection of the rest of the team. Not saying it will happen. But they all have the same engineers, so they definitely could have issues as well going into the race.
Race fans, that concludes another episode of the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends about the show. Also, remember to comment and to win the Biffle autographed diecast. And thanks for tuning in and giving us your time, and hopefully we're making a lot of money this week. Liehr, say your goodbyes, buddy.
I want to tell all the fans out there, I shouldn't say fans, but our NASCAR fantasy community, that we appreciate you guys watching our show week in, week out. We are coming close to the duration of the 2016 season. It is definitely one of those sports where they have the longest season out of all the sports out there, but it does take dedication to do it. And we are happy to provide that to you guys every single week because we just love talking about it, love doing it. But if you guys are out there, we've had some run of a little bit of bad luck, but some good showings. We've had Poppa finished third last week in the qualifier. I finished third the week before. We're sniffing that qualifier, and we definitely are going to be all in it again this weekend to try to land that seat to Homestead. But we encourage you guys to as well to get out there and get a lot of lineups and all that in the different tournaments that they've got going on. But they rolled out the $300 qualifier this week, which is nothing more than throwing a lottery ticket out there because the way that this race is going to come out. So, of course, they would have to throw the lower field tournament out there on the week that you have no idea what's going to happen. So, but thanks, guys, for watching. I appreciate it every single week. And congratulations again to C Money on your Truex signed postcard. So send that out to you, buddy. Just get a hold of me. But hope you guys have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. And we'll talk to you guys again next week.
Later, y'all. Peace.
Have a great weekend.